Welcome everyone to our Bull session today on multifamily. And we're focusing today on AI, artificial intelligence and multifamily. So I've got a few questions that I've whipped up here on the fly using AI, ChatGPT. So we'll start off here. Now we hear a lot about AI revolutionizing everything. What's actually being adopted right now in multifamily and what's still theoretical? What do you see?
I'm gonna jump in right off the bat.
Yep. Go for it.
Actually, I think about the, I think it's Predict I want to say is their company. Basically, they're doing, they're leveraging AI to predict essentially during the billing cycle and or GL coding and things like that. Something that takes a lot of manpower typically for really any size company to manage. Smart enough to understand, hey, okay, this comes in, I'm going to put it under this bucket instead of this bucket, and just not having to have a human involved in that.
Predicting where the costs fall into the GL.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Okay. So yeah, things like that. That's happening right now.
Yeah. Look out, accountants.
Coding to fraud, all that. I've seen the platform as well. It's actually quite remarkable. If I remember correctly, I did a sit down with their CEO at PropTech last year. I think his customer size is small to large, but large meaning I think on a monthly basis they're doing a few 100,000 invoices a month.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I think this is the other side to AI, less from a product perspective. When you're deploying AI as a tool in your organization and you're building with AI, now your team size is a lot smaller. So I look at a Predict, and I'm sure there's others out there where it's not where you need to have hundreds of team members to be able to go create this stuff. You need people who understand how to use the AI, and the AI is making the tools now.
Absolutely.
Pretty impactful there.
I can't speak to multifamily specifically, but I know in some of my other roles ways we're seeing AI getting deployed in the business space. Definitely in the call center space where we're seeing to be able to reduce call load of taking knowledge bases that already existed that were resources for the call center and using those to create chatbots that can then, a customer, instead of having to wait on hold, can just ask a question in the chat and it responds with the right answer. I've seen one company that has even taken that chatbot and is leveling up, and they're actually getting that to voice where they can sound like they're talking to someone, but that is all generated using the knowledge base and then the troubleshooting with the customer and asking them questions. And
I love just talking about the sales team. Someone that's run a sales organization, currently running a sales organization. The hardest part about sales, and this is going to be mind-boggling for some, is inputting data into your CRM.
No, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think here soon, whether it's the CRMs themselves or maybe there's some middleware, but I think some of these tools that exist from a call recording, note takers, I think we're a couple of weeks, hopefully, most likely probably months, away from these tools being able to just input the data into the CRM,
absolutely.
Which will really flip sales organizations upside down.
Yeah, I think this brings up a good point and I feel like I always say this is tech adoption, tech strategy. It doesn't work very linear. It's more of this quick parabola shape where once it becomes accessible, once it becomes financially stable, once it becomes easier to adopt, it just takes off. And even when I think about how I've used AI currently, we are now at the stage where you are choosing AI tools that synergize with one another, and you are in a position where you're like, this doesn't work. This one does work. This one does work. Okay, I need this feature. Maybe this one will do the whole thing, or I will combine these two AI tools together, and this will be my seamless flow. And I think a lot of people, when they think about AI, they think this should be pretty easy to adopt. It is very easy to use off the get-go, but the training aspect takes a lot longer. And I think that is something that we seem to be discounting a few times is you can't just pick up AI and start using it correctly. You need to input your brand voice, at least on the marketing side, or you need to give it the specific parameters. And sometimes engaging those parameters takes hours. It takes a long time where you're like, I want this. No, I want it a little bit more like this. For me, and I think for a lot of people, it's like, don't discount how fast AI, one, moves, and also it takes a long time to set up and then find the unique features you're looking for and like pairing those together as well.
So Devin, I have a very controversial topic. Catch me later and we can talk at length about this, but I actually think AI, and I'm hopefully SaaS vendors don't find me later, but I think AI is going to disrupt the typical SaaS model.
Oh, it already is.
It already is.
It already is.
I'll take that a step further. Real estate operators, managers, developers, they have some of the largest data sets that they've been sitting on for decades.
And they've done nothing.
They've done nothing
Not
with
a
it.
single thing.
But we're seeing right now, you could look at vibe coding, and I'm not saying go build some institutional app in a vibe coding scenario today, maybe in a couple of weeks. but I do think AI is giving the power back to organizations, companies, teams of one or two to say, hey, do I need to go spend $10 a user a seat a month to get this function? Or can I spend some time, a couple of hours, a couple of days, maybe even a couple of months, leverage the data sets that I already own and have access to, and start creating my own tools? I don't think it's things that people want to talk about right now, but I'm convinced the vendors are racing to infuse AI so that they can have a moat to defend against an operator from saying, well, I've already got a data warehouse. I'm using X vibe coding tool or this agent tool. Absolutely. And I've just created this myself. Taylor and I were talking about this a few months back, but imagine linking up your PMS, maybe your data warehouse, to a GPT or maybe an LLM that you have, and now you're asking it its own questions. You talk about hours. Absolutely. Think about an organization who has all this data and they say, wait, what do I need? That, no offense accountants, no offense analysts, but why do I need the FP&A guy to go off and come back with some report?
100%.
Why do I need this analyst to go out and come back and spit me out a performance? I can just ask a question to this AI, this agent, and now in a matter of seconds, here's my output and I can fine tune. So absolutely, these are the things that I think over the next couple of months, we're going to see more and more of this.
Yeah, it's all about autonomy. Even so, I'll take it from the marketing content perspective, and hopefully, I still have a job after this. But like, it pushes back the deadline sometimes of needing, or the threshold of needing someone from the outside. If you look at it from like a marketing agency perspective, a lot of people. I literally had a conversation with someone today who was looking to do more content for their personal stuff and outside of the industry. And I told them is like, you might not need all of these different resources right now. Right now you need a website, you need some content, you need some social copy, you need a few things here and there that with the use of AI, you could probably do on your own in a day, in 2 days, in a week.
Absolutely.
And then once that scales up, now you can go out and venture out, find a third party, because there is a different feel of having that white glove approach. Like, we've all been there. We're typing into ChatGPT, we're like, return this, and you're like, no, that does not work. Whereas if I were getting on the phone with a copywriter, or if I was getting on the phone with an editor, I could be like, hey, look at this video that I saw, look at this movie that I saw, I want to cut it up like this. They're using that processing now to get that out, but am I really going to do that in the first stages of what I'm looking to do?
Right, makes perfect sense.
I think you have the companies that are coming up with more enterprise-ready solutions that are leveraging AI, but then there's also such a opportunity just at the individual level to say, okay, how can I use something like ChatGPT or some of the other tools that are out there to be able to make my normal job faster, quicker, and to think deeper and broader, and to play the devil's advocate on persuasive things I'm putting together. And I think it was the Shopify CEO sent out an email to the entire company just a few weeks ago, talking about this, and basically said, like, using AI is now effectively a fundamental expectation of everyone at Shopify.
As it should be.
We will use AI usage questions on our performance and peer reviews. The learning is self-directed, but share what you've learned. Before asking for more headcount or resources, they have to demonstrate why teams can't do what they need using AI. And he says everyone means everyone. This applies to all of us, including us and the executive team. And I think looking for not just the tools that are out there, but making sure we're spending time individually of how can I be using this to kind of unlock opportunities.
Well, and I love what you said. It's something that we're doing in my company today. We're looking at where we're spending money. What are we spending money on? And so right now, I build homes. I build apartment buildings, and the architectural environment is a very old school approach. Guys, really smart guys and gals who are out here drawing, and they know all these codes, this, that, and the other. I've stumbled on a few different agents. AI design is becoming a thing now. I've paired them together, and processes that would take weeks, tens of thousands of dollars. Running a few prompts that we all believe in. We're saying, hey, go ahead and add ADA code to this, add some fire code to this. And in a matter of seconds, I've got 4K resolution, interior, exterior models of how something could look.
Absolutely.
Could look. We were spending $20,000 for one slice of how something could look. That I needed to have someone go draft, and that's not a knock at that industry, but it's saying institutionally when building a business, running a company right now, to your call out, can you just pause and say to your team, what can we do differently right now? And I promise you, the cost of the AI will be less than the man hours spent trying to do this the way we've been doing.
At least it is right now. It'll be interesting to see. We know, I think a conversation we were having earlier today, someone was a little bit anti-AI, but they were understanding the costs associated with it. Right now, the tools that we're using, we're not paying the true cost of that solution. It's being subsidized right now for adoption and for learning purposes. And at some point, they're going to have to pay the piper and show that they can have a profitable business model. But it will be interesting to see, because the amount of productivity that I'm getting out of it, like as I'm doing the math in my head, so how much would I be willing to pay personally to be able to use some of these tools? Like it's a big number. And they're going to figure that out, and they're going to start extracting that from everyone. But for right now, it can do a lot.
I think really the big thing that we're seeing, at least that I've observed, is just better decisions being made because everybody's better informed. I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but there's so much data in the world right now, and it's all noise in most scenarios, unless you have a team of analysts that can sift through that and actually come to the table after weeks and weeks and weeks of research and development and all these things. And we see in multifamily, just in the decision-making side of technology, right? We've seen millions of units of these different technologies deployed, and never has there been an ability to actually leverage that data to say, hey, look, we already know it's been deployed. We know it works. We can look at real market performance data. We can look at all these different aggregated data sets that exist that no one's ever been able to bring together. And in a few seconds, you can have a recommendation pointing you in the right direction. And now the decision maker is like, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly how to get where I'm going. And at the end of the day, that to me is dollars and cents. You know what I mean? When it comes to the end result of those decisions. So.
And I think to your point, it's less now about what AI tool you're using. It gets back to something we've all said for decades, but whoever owns the data is king.
Correct. Correct.
That's true.
A lot of times I think the biggest problem with AI is that, this is going to get rid of this person's job.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it's doing is turning a lot of entry-level employees into managers. Because, again, looking at it from a content side, if I need an assistant editor to look through some footage and things like that, I've literally done this. I put a transcript into DeepSeek, and I told it, hey, I'm looking to cut this video up, and I need you to pull out some dialogue for me and then bucket that into a template. So it gave me the template. I said, actually, can we get a better flow on this? Maybe chronologically speaking, whatever. rearranges the template. I said, okay, now look through the transcript. I gave you some of the time codes, pull out some dialogue for each part. And it actually worked pretty well. And so now, let's say I was an assistant editor or a beginning editor, I can now just be the editor because that assistant editor role is being taken care of, getting that rough cut done, putting that into an order. And so there's two aspects of that call me a progressive, I guess, is you are saving so much money on this entry-level role that now you're able to move up entry-level roles into managers, and then also give them more benefits, more payment, whatever it may be, because you're already decreasing that expense. So I personally think that, yes, AI can be used maliciously as well to reduce the amount of labor that you need, or you can use it as a way of exponentially growing quite faster and empowering the people that you actually work with to have the tools to actually do that. And then once you reach that next threshold, as I talked about, then you start to employ more people. Because I think that's so true. Nowadays, AI is, I think, getting on this more defamation track than anything, especially with AI art and things like that. And it's hard to balance technology and innovation with moral ethics and humanity at the forefront.
And I think we do have to pause and kind of look at the ethics as we're going through, because there's going to be times where we will cross the boundaries, but we just don't know where the boundaries are yet. Yep. And part of that's going to come through exploration. An example of how, when you talk about the transcripts, that the panel discussion we just had here in this room that you two were a part of, I met with each of the panelists for 30 minutes. We took the brief session description, and we just kind of talked about what are some things you really want to talk about that's there. And I recorded each of those, so I had 3 different recordings that I turned into transcripts, and then I gave the chat GPT with the description, the 3 transcripts, and said, can you put together a conversation guide that allows me to make sure I cover these topics, but I'm asking the questions to the right people in a way that allows them to be able to talk about the things they want to talk about, and it saves a whole lot of time.
And I think that's exactly what Taylor was saying, is in this situation alone, it's not removing the knowledge base from the person.
Exactly.
You're not going to sit there
I think you
reading
get more
it.
from it, if anything.
Exactly. You're able to develop a better flow, and you're better prepared to actually use the knowledge, to use the resource, to use the skill set to actually do the actual activity.
So what you've really hit on is that we're all in the people business at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what our jobs are, and now we don't have to spend all our time in front of a computer screen. Instead, we can spend our time focused on the people component, which I think is a lot of many businesses shifting over to, now I'm not just a SaaS company, you mentioned it before, they're a SaaS plus service company, because that service component is so valuable, and it's been overlooked for years because everybody's been focused on, well, my software does X, Y, Z, so that's why you want to spend this money. But if you don't have to spend time and money and energy and effort learning something new because you have a system that can do that for you, you can spend more time focusing on things like customer service, like building relationships, like focusing on growth and good decisions, like I said, instead of, all right, and I can tell you, I actually, very similarly, I in all my consulting engagements, I record, use those chat transcripts, and in many scenarios, I'll take, we're talking months worth of chat transcripts, and I will dump all of them in, and I will say, okay, this is what I need to accomplish for the client. These are all the conversations we've ever had about every single topic, and I need to understand what are their primary focuses, how do I best present this information, and this is the map. And so instead of spending literally, good God, when you're balancing multiple consulting clients and you're trying to, run a business, grow a software business, manage a team, do all these things, again, a lot of stuff falls between the cracks. And I think for the first time, I feel like in, good God, my entire working career, we are more on top of things now than we ever have been. And it's just been because all of the experience that we're bringing to the table every day in those conversations is always being leveraged. So it's never being lost, and it's not having to be reinvented, which I think a lot of teams lose so much productivity because they're constantly revisiting the same things because they never get followed through with. Yep. So anyways, that's my shtick, you know what I mean? It's definitely changed my world for sure.
So I'll bring us to a close with a quote that ties into what David was saying about, what is the threat to workers and jobs. And if you remember last fall, Here in the U.S., we had the dock workers strike, and one of their negotiating things is they wanted to make sure there was assurances that technology and automation was not going to be used, for their jobs, right? And when that was in the news, there was a quote. It was actually an older quote, but it was relevant to that. It came from the Swedish Minister for Employment Integration, and he said, in Sweden, if you ask a union leader, are you afraid of new technology? They'll answer, no, I'm afraid of old technology. The jobs disappear, and then we train people for new jobs. We won't protect jobs, but we will protect workers.
I love that.
And I think that mentality has to be adopted by companies if they're trying to keep AI from being used within their organizations, because if they're not doing it, their competitors are.